So most of us are in the sadhaka stage of practice, which is something in between being a conditioned soul and being a siddha, perfected being. So being a sadhaka is a very unique, glorious, but also particular stage that we need to properly acknowledge in all different sub-stages inside the official stage of being a sadhaka. But in brief words, sadhaka is not an eternal position, but a transitioning into the siddha stage. So being a sadhaka proper will imply ideally to be always disposed for constant, if you will, healthy reformation, constantly healthy purification and constant becoming in a much better version of ourselves. So this has a lot to do with the conception of Anartha-nivritti. Anartha-nivritti is something that sometimes is not very much and properly understood. So again, we need to update our approach sometimes to Anartha-nivritti, which is not actually a practice in itself. It's not that I will engage in Anartha-nivritti, but Anartha-nivritti will be like the natural byproduct of embracing bhajana kriya, of embracing bhakti, proper abhideya, the means. The byproduct will be a particular type of cleansing, of purification of our heart. So the transition for us is not only between being a sadhaka and being a siddha, but also, in one sense, having been a conditioned soul, nityabada, and being a sadhaka, because again, some part of the nityabada is still lingering there. It's not that we are totally freed from every part of conditioning. So there are many transitionings going on simultaneously inside of us, and many problems for the sadhaks in the daily practicing life has to do with many tribulations, let's say in the spiritual project, has to do with identity issues, not resolved identity issues, basically, that we have to know how to deal with. To accept what still requires reformation. That may not sound so glorious for our ego. Oh, I'm still have to deal with this. Oh, this is so, I feel so ashamed that this stuff is here, this stuff is there. But the point is that we should not over-identify with our anarthas, first of all. And second, even if such a powerful anartha is there with you still, you shouldn't give that anartha more power than the power of Krishna's grace. I mean, Krishna's mercy is always much more powerful than all our anarthas put together. So that should give us a big sense of hope, even in the face of difficult moments, difficult days, cloudy stages in our practice, etc. So it's important for us to recognize where we are now. Of course, it's not a paranoid thing that every single day we're only thinking about my anarthas and cleaning my heart from anarthas. But also we can, of course, and we should embrace the positive side of the practice and culture, a positive attachment in this and that direction. But we should also become aware of our anarthas. I would say that's the main thing of Anartha-nivritti. To practice, embrace bhajana kriya, embrace the practice of bhakti in the context of being aware of what needs to be overcome, to be properly aware, as much as you can. Of course, we are not maybe fully aware of all our anarthas, and big part of our hope is to present ourselves before the sadhu, because the sadhu is a person who will see ourselves as we are not seeing ourselves, who knows ourselves much more than we know ourselves. The sadhu will see our dark side, if you will, much more clear than what we are seeing ourselves, but he will see or she will see our bright side, our prospect, much more clear than what we are seeing ourselves. And of course, she will mainly focus on our potential and will try to feed that. So, but if you want to have a nice realization, as once one devotee says, if you want to have a nice insight in your chanting, you may, for example, think about what do you need to transcend in this very present moment, and you may pray for the necessary mercy to transcend that particular anartha, false value, and, well, be open to the reply to that prayer. The reply will come and you will be able to transcend that, and you will really feel, oh, this is mystical. I am able to see real values more and more and to reject the false sense of things. Actually, anartha implies, again, a lack of conception of reality. Srila Siddhartha Maharaj will say that all our problems are arising due to our lack of proper conception. So as much as we become schooled in bhakti, as much as we receive some bandha gyan, we start to see everything in connection to its source. There's less and less opportunities to project false values into the environment, basically. But again, we should be aware that we are dealing with certain things that are in us, that are in our DNA, if we will. We are coming with the whole DNA of other generations before us. That so many generations of DNA are present in our conditioning, but again, it's still above that. Krishna's mercy is much more powerful than all this. So to be able to recognize, to accept what needs to be overcome, is a very glorious and undesirable aspect of our practice that is part of Anartha-nivritti. And properly establish short-term goals, middle-term goals, and long-term goals in a realistic, sustainable way in our practice. That's a very important way for all of us to be balanced in our projection. What's a long-term goal? Not mistake that with a short-term goal and so on. So basically that's Anartha-nivritti. To awake to those things that we need to face in the present moment, as Guru Maharaj will speak of ego-effacing practice. But to do all that, to do that effacing, to do that embracing in the particular context of a positive practice we are trying to go deep, in this case, bhakti. So a particular type of updating, if you will, that we are trying to share today regarding the concept of Anartha-nivritti. See you next fortnight.